Transcripts and recordings of the podcast may not be used for any purpose without the direct written permission of the podcast owner.
Please join us as the Coalition for the Remembrance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad celebrates its 35th annual Founders Day, Sunday, March 6, 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. As the archives for the remembrance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Crow is committed to the Black community and ensuring our voices are heard through Crow TV. Come support 35 years of this important work on Sunday, March 6. Masks are required for entry. Call Crow for details at 773-925-1600. Welcome to Light It Up, a podcast about resilient women balancing motherhood, their careers, personal lives, and all of the challenges that come along with being a superwoman. Each week, you'll be motivated to take action to lead, inspire, transform, and empower. Now, here's your host, Dr. Aginah M. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Light It Up. I am your host, Dr. Aginah M. I'm so excited about today's episode because I have a very special guest who is very, very passionate about working with women and making sure that we have our mental health and self-care intact, because as busy women, we often put ourselves on the back burner. And so my guest today, Mrs. Felicia Houston, is a licensed clinical counselor, professional counselor, LCPC. And she is currently a mental health consultant and community development liaison with the University of Chicago Medicine at Ingalls Hospital. Our paths have crossed over the last couple of years. She is a dynamic speaker, and she always gets us going in terms of thinking about the importance of taking care of ourselves. And I'm so happy that she decided to join me today so that she could give us a much needed reminder of the things that we need to do to keep ourselves healthy and intact. So welcome to Light It Up, Felicia. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. Like you said, we've crossed paths a number of times, so it's good to connect.
Yes,
here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So your experience goes back about 20 years. I know you got your BA in psychology and your MA in human development counseling from Bradley University. I'm just curious to know what made you decide to go into the field of psychology and mental health.
Oh, wow. I think what made me want to go into the field is I always just wondered, like when people did strange things. As a child, I always wondered, like, what is going on in their head? Like, I always wanted to be a fly on the wall of their brain so that I could just see what's going on. What is making them say those things? What's making them do those things? So when I went to college, first year, I majored in international business with a minor in Spanish. And that first business class was so god awful boring that I couldn't even do it. I was like, I can't and I won't. And I switched to psychology, and I love my psychology classes. And I just stayed with it because it helped me to figure out what was going on and the why behind people's behavior. Because even to this day, people do things, but now I'm like, okay, now I understand the why. It doesn't make it right. Yeah. But I understand the why. So that's why I think I went into the field.
Okay. And then in terms of your focus on women, which, I'm an advocate of, advocating for women empowerment, was there something in particular that caused you to kind of focus more so on women than children or, men or?
Oh, absolutely. I think, first of all, because I am a woman and I'm surrounded by women all the time. And so I hear the women talking. And so I think that's what made me focus on the women. But also, the fact that women are the caretakers. You know, we take care of everyone else. You know, we're just naturally nurturing people. And so we tend to take care of everyone else. And like you said, we tend to put ourselves at the bottom of the list, or sometimes we're not even on the list. We don't even make the list. So, because we take care of everybody else, and by the time you take care of everybody else, you're too tired to take care of yourself. And so that's just something that I wanted to focus on, because I would see women coming into the emergency room, you know, who are just depleted, or they're suicidal and they're homicidal. And it's because a lot of times it was because they just had neglected themselves for so long. So that's why I wanted to focus on that. I feel like if I can help women, I can help their children. And if I can help their children, I can help their husbands, and I can help the community, you know, so that, you know, we are mentally well.
That's a very good point. I don't think I really considered or looked at it in that way, that just by focusing on that particular population, you are helping everybody. Because I know certainly I've had my moments as a mother of teenagers where I'm just like, if they know, they'll say to me, have you had your counseling session? Because they know that if I'm off, the whole house is just out of whack and out of order. And you mentioned about seeing women coming to the hospital or coming to the emergency room, and, you know, who are just depleted and stressed. Can you kind of talk about how stress and the lack of, I guess, mental well-being also plays on your physical health and other health issues that one can have?
Okay, absolutely, absolutely. So like you said earlier, I'm with U Chicago Medicine at Ingalls, and I'm with the Department of Psychiatry. So when people present into the emergency room, a lot of times they present with physical ailments. So it's my head hurts, my stomach hurts, you know, I can't see, my vision is blurred, and things of that sort. So after they do a number of tests to determine, you know, what's going on and to rule some things out, many times then they end up calling our department, because they're like, it's something psychologically going on with this person, so we need you to come and do this assessment. And so what we see a lot of times is that people are presented in the ER because they have extremely high levels of stress, and in particular, women. There's a lot of women who say, you know, I just can't take it anymore. You know, if you don't put me in the hospital, somebody's going to get hurt. You know, so I need some help, and I need it now. And so a lot of times they may present like, what I've seen in the last month is more women are presenting with saying that they're having panic attacks, anxiety attacks, because of what's going on in the world, the uncertainty, not knowing, you know, one day the kids are in school, one day they're not, they're virtual, they're back, they're in the building, they're home, you know. So a lot of women are presenting with panic attacks, or they just say, I feel like I'm having a heart attack. And then when you get through processing it, it's not that they're going to have a heart attack. It's just that they have so many stressors going on, and the issues are not being addressed. So those are just, you know, some of the things that we see. Some people have hypertension. Some people have high cholesterol. We're seeing a lot of women having strokes at a younger age, heart attacks at a younger age, because of the high levels of stress. So there is a connection between your physical health and your mental health.
Have you found that, because we are now in, I guess you could actually consider this as technically year 3 of the pandemic, since 2020 was year 1, right? And then 2021 was year 2 of the pandemic, I guess. And we're still, you know, in the midst of it. Like you mentioned, the back and forth with whether or not school is in session or not. Have you found that the severity of, or the cases of, you know, women coming into the hospital with these issues has been more prevalent now versus when we first entered into the pandemic, if that makes sense? Because we were on lockdown for a while, but now it's trying to get back to normal, but really there is no such thing as normal anymore. So do you find that now that with that transition of trying to get back to normal, that there seems to be a more heightened level of the stress and anxiety?
Well, I would say that we noticed an increase at the beginning when the pandemic first started, because even though we shut down and we weren't doing in person, and we're still not doing a whole bunch of in person. We have some in person, some virtual, but we noticed an increase. So I would say when we looked at the numbers compared our numbers from this year to the previous year, that the number of people who presented had tripled. And so that means that we have been offering stuff virtually. So it seems like more people are accessing treatment because that's not a barrier. They don't have to worry about transportation. They don't have to worry about a work schedule. They can schedule to do an assessment when it works for them. They can do it from their phone. They can do it from their laptop. They can do it from their car. So I think because we are offering additional services, more people are accessing treatment. But I also think because we've been in a pandemic, I know it's been difficult, but for us, more people are open to the idea of getting help because now people are realizing I'm not by myself. And you're not. So if anyone is watching this, you are not alone. Yeah. If you are experiencing anxiety, if you are experiencing depression, if you are experiencing high levels of stress, you are not alone. It's a whole bunch of people in there with you, but help is available. So yes, I would say we've definitely seen an increase. We've had to hire more people. Just in the hospital in general, we've been short-staffed because more people are just showing up to get the help that they need. So I think that's how the pandemic, I try to look at everything with a little silver ray of hope. Yeah. That is what has come out of this, that more people are realizing that, maybe I should talk to somebody about what's going on.
And do you think that we'll continue to, or in this particular field, that there will continue to be that access in terms of being able to meet with a counselor remotely via telehealth versus going back to the way we used to do things with everything has to be in person?
Yes, I think absolutely. Because like I said, we offer, and we have 4 locations, and we offer virtual at some locations. Some locations we offer virtual and in person. And so I think we will continue that because we're able to serve more people. And I think that's just, and some people just don't feel comfortable being in person. And then lately I've noticed a lot of people are saying, I need in person, so then we may put them on the waiting list to get them in person, or we may suggest, would you consider going virtual for now? And then once the slot becomes available in person, we'll switch you to in person. So absolutely, I think that it would be a disservice to our community if we didn't continue to offer both, because there's clearly a need. So we're able to reach more people.
And, I'm glad that you also mentioned that people are now starting to see that they are not alone, because I know for myself, I can date back in terms of seeking counseling from the time that I was in law school and preparing to get married. And during that time, I remember I felt like I was stigmatized when I talked to my family about the fact I'm going to see a counselor. And they're, in our community in particular, sometimes we have the lay it on the altar and everything will be okay versus actually talking to a professional. And I'm just amazed to see how my family in particular has come full circle in terms of now understanding the importance of counseling. For my family, it was more centered around grief because my dad passed away in 2019. And so for me, it was just normal. Let me pick up the phone and say, okay, now I need to talk about this, and trying to convince, family members, I think you need to see a counselor just to, so it's become more acceptable. People, it seems like, are more willing to talk about it and share because it's no longer this stigma.
Yes, I definitely, I agree with you. And I think in our community, there's more awareness surrounding it. So now more people, like we've seen more people that have never accessed treatment before that are showing up, which is a good thing, because never before the pandemic, they would have never even considered coming to talk to anybody or calling anyone. And then I think for me, what I try to say to people in our community is, have you considered talking to someone? Because you have a lot on your plate, and I can't imagine what it's like for you. But have you considered just talking to someone who's not related to you about what's going on? And so, and a lot of times people will say, but I haven't. I said, well, you just may want to consider it. It's up to you. But most people who have all of that going on usually seek some professional help.
Right. So. And also, I think sometimes, you may think, oh, well, I have like, a girlfriend that I could talk to or some friends. But what I don't think people consider, and I had to consider this myself also when I was going through my divorce, I had like a core group, 2 or 3 friends that I talked to. And one of my really good friends said to me that she was having dreams about me and just my, situation. She had began to internalize what I was going through. And I was like, okay, I can't have this impacting, impacting my friends and that type of way. So I don't think that sometimes, we may think, oh, we're venting and sharing what we're going through with someone else, but not really realizing how it will impact them as well, especially if they care about you,
Exactly. Or even like you said, just as a mom, how it affects your children. And I think a lot of times moms don't realize that while you are going through whatever it is, where you have this high level of stress and you don't realize that it's affecting the kids. And I'll give you a perfect example. I was speaking one time to a group of 3rd graders about stress. And many people were like, what do the 3rd graders have to be stressed out about? And the 3rd graders, I'm not joking, those 3rd graders were like, Miss Felicia, my mama's stressing me out. My teacher's stressing me out. This homework stressing me out. And then one little girl, God bless her, so she said, this book bag is stressing me out because it's too heavy. And it's affecting my back. And I was like, oh, okay. But when I talk with those kids, most of those kids had parents who had high levels of stress, which was affecting those kids. And the parents did not realize that it was affecting the children. So that's why you may want to consider talking to someone, because you may be causing additional stress for your children. And then they may be acting out in school and you're wondering, well, what's going on? It's probably because they are watching you and it is affecting them.
Right. Yeah. I'm in our household, we have some pretty honest and transparent conversations about stress and just about how we impact one another. And I have learned, I will admit that I used to be one of those parents, I still am just a little bit, where unless you have a fever or just can't move or function, you're going to school, right?
Exactly.
Me. But in this last, this school year, because the twins are applying to college, and then I have a freshman, and I had to start listening and paying attention. Like when my daughter, Aaliyah, was saying, look, I'm stressed out. It's too much. I've got these essays to write. I still got to do my schoolwork. And, and it got to the point where if she asked me, can I miss a day of school? I'm like, okay. And she was so stressed out about just being back in person in school. She had more than enough credits to graduate early. So she finished high school in December, because she said, I don't have time to be at school with these bad children. It was like, they get on my nerves. And, and so now she is taking classes at Prairie State, and she's working until she and her get ready to go away to school in August. But she said it was just too much, just being back in school with 3,000 other students, because this particular child is very like, I'm not trying to be in a bunch of groups with folks because I don't want COVID. Like, she is very clear about maintaining her boundaries, but she was the one who verbalized that this is a stressful time. And I'm glad that I listened and didn't just force her like, no, you got to go to school, or no, you need to stay. So I've learned how to listen. Because like you said, sometimes as adults, we can think, well, what do children have to be stressed out about? Like, we're providing for them, but
exactly.
but it is real. And I have found myself saying that too, like, you don't have bills to pay, but not realizing how my stress is impacting them as well. Now, a lot of times we talk about self-care and we talk about the importance of self-care. Can you kind of talk about what exactly is self-care? What does that mean? Because sometimes we don't practice self-care because we think that, I don't know if we think that we're not deserving or if we just don't have time and we just aren't simply thinking about ourselves. But what exactly is self-care?
So I think with self-care, like it's just right now it's a buzzword, so everybody's saying it. If you go on Google right now and type in self-care, about 99 different articles will pop up about self-care and 99 ways in which you can start self-care. But what I will say is that self-care is an individual thing. So it's not a cookie cutter recipe, so what works for me may not necessarily work for you. You have to figure out what works for you. So the technical definition of it is you're doing things for yourself, physically, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, there's different forms of self-care. But for me, the simple definition for me that resonates with me, self-care is simply giving myself permission to pause. That's it. It's not nothing deep. It's not nothing, that requires me to do a whole bunch of research on it or anything, but giving myself permission to pause. Like on those days when I have a whole bunch going on, can I give myself 5 minutes, just woosah? Can I just give myself 5 minutes to give me a Starbucks? Because that's what I want to do. Okay. Right. And not feel guilty about it. Right. So I think for me, you have to figure out what self-care is for you and make it a priority. Like a lot of people, the big buzz right now is self-care Saturday, self-care Sunday. Self-care should be a part of your routine every day. It shouldn't just be a day because, you're human. So it could mean what I don't want people to think in the way that it seems like the world is trying to tell you that, Dr. Muhammad, you need to put something else on your plate. I know you have a whole bunch, but now you need to add self-care on your plate. I don't want people to look at it that way. I want you to look at it as maybe there's some things that you can take off your plate. So like we're at the beginning of the year, something that I do is I do an evaluation of everything I'm involved in. And then I look at it, the list. Which of these things are giving me life? And which of these things are sucking the life out of me? And those things that are sucking the life out of me, I need to make some decisions about them because that is affecting my self-care because I'm wasting my time. They're zapping the energy out of me. So maybe removing some of these things would allow me to do some things that I enjoy. So that's what I would say in regards to self-care, making that a part. It should be a lifestyle. It's not just a fad. It's not people like, take a bubble bath. You could take your bubble bath. And when you finish taking your bubble bath, if you were miserable before you took that bubble bath, you're probably going to be miserable after you take that bubble bath. So, but making sure that you come up with your own self-care plan, what works for you. But like for me, I like taking naps. I was on a call one time and we were talking about that and the other lady, she was like, girl, if I take a nap, it's going to be all over. She said, so I don't do naps because I'm going to bed early at night. So that's her thing, but I like taking naps. So taking naps refreshes me, it rejuvenizes me, and I'd like to take breaks because that helps me to recharge and come up and come back. So, but it's different for each individual, I would say.
And it's free. So it doesn't mean that, you can, like you mentioned, the self-care Saturdays, and it doesn't necessarily mean going out getting a manicure or pedicure. Like you don't have to spend money. You can do.
And for me, getting my nails done is not self-care. Like I hate doing that. I'm like, I need to go get some nails fixed right now. That's not self-care for me. I got to sit in there, I have to put that mask on. That's not self-care for me.
Right.
But to each his own. For some people say when they go get their nails done, that's their time for them to be alone. That's when they go to sleep. They take they rest. So, you just have to figure out what works for you, but make it a priority because what I hear from a lot of women, Dr. Muhammad, is that I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
I don't have time to take care of me because I'm busy taking care of everyone else. Or I made time for me, but now I feel guilty, and my thing is right now in this pandemic, we're talking about all these essential workers and this is essential and that is essential. Well, self-care is essential. In order for you to still be around and still stay alive and take care of everyone else, you have to put your mask on first. And that's how I look at self-care. Put your mask on, take care of you, then you can help everyone else. But if you're putting your mask on, you're gonna die, and everybody around you is gonna die.
You're absolutely right about that, because I began to implement when I get up in the morning, doing at least 5-minute minimal of meditation before I can even begin to function. The other thing that was self-care for me was, once it got cold, that's what we get for living in Chicago, I used to go for a walk every morning. That's how I started my day. Like, that was my time for me to have my mind clear and to be able to think. And I could tell the difference as far as how my day would go. But yes, I did incorporate naps. I think naps are essential.
And that's what I feel. I feel the same way. So, but they should each its own. You have to figure out what works for you. But I agree. Just getting outside and getting some fresh air. I'm a runner, and so I go out even when it's cold outside. I just put on extra clothes, because research shows that just getting some fresh air affects your mental health. So if you can go out and get some fresh air, even if it's 10-15 minutes, and then come back in the house, at least you went outside and took that time just for you. So
okay. So one thing that I didn't ask you, with your background of being a counselor, were you ever in private practice? Do you see clients outside of University of Chicago Ingalls, or are you strictly with the hospital?
So in the past I have done private practice, but currently I just like serving as a mental health consultant and doing the business side, not so much seeing the clients, but I do have quite a few contacts. And when people reach out to me, I refer them to therapists that I trust. But that's not where I'm at right now. Who knows where I'll be in the future? But right now, I like being on the consultant side and doing more of the workshops, the trainings, presentations, and things of that sort, and creating the awareness in our community. That's where I think that's where I'm supposed to be for right now.
Okay. And what type of workshops do you do that focuses on women? Are there specific topics, or does it just depend on the audience? Because I know oftentimes you will go out and speak to different groups and things of that nature. Do you focus in on one specific area, or is it just contingent upon your audience?
Well, I would say that the most sought out ones are the ones like for stress. So like I do this thing called stress. It's a stress less workshop for women only. Okay. A lot of people reach out for that. The self-care one, self-care made easy. That's another one. And then considering everything that's been going on in the world, many people have been requesting workshops or talks on just mental health in general, and how the suicide rate is increasing in our community, and what can we do as a community to get on top of that, to address it, so that the numbers don't continue to go up, but that they can start going down, and maybe at one point we can even eliminate it. So those are just some of the topics. I think I have one next week on work-life balance. Mostly stress, self-care, stress, self-care, work-life balance, or a lot of parenting issues, how to set limits with our children, how to be a parent and not their friend, and things of that sort. So those would be some of the topics.
What if someone is looking for, because I've talked to some friends who have talked about, the fact that they need to find a counselor, but they don't know how to start, the process, or make sure that they're finding someone who is the right fit for them. What tips can you give someone who's who's seeking counseling services? What are there specific questions that they should ask when working with or looking for a prospective counselor? Can you kind of walk us through what that would look like and give us some recommendations on how to find someone who will be a good fit?
Absolutely. I think the first thing I would say is if you have insurance, you want to check with your insurance provider first and foremost. And the reason I say that is because you don't want to waste your time and get frustrated with the system. So if you just call, the counseling center across the street, and then you give them all your information, and then you give them your insurance information, then they call you back and tell you you're out of network. you know, then that's frustrating. And you call the next person and they tell you that. So just call your insurance company first. On the back of your insurance card, there should be a number for behavioral health benefits. And if not, just call your 1-800 number and tell them I need to find out what my behavioral health benefits are. And then when you talk to them, ask them for in-network providers. A lot of Black women prefer Black women, you know, or a Black male. So be specific when you call them and say, I would like some referrals. Can you give me some Black women? Can you give me African American therapists or Spanish speaking, you know, whatever it is that you're seeking. And then they usually give you a list of about 3. Don't allow them to just give you one, because there's a big chance that right now they have a waiting list. Because most therapists right now have waiting lists. So don't be frustrated at that. But if you have 3 referrals, then you can try different ones. The next thing is do your research. You know, Google those people. Go to their websites, you know, read their reviews. What are people saying? I have a close friend that I have been referring people to. And one day, one of the people said, have you read her reviews? And I was like, no, I haven't. And so I went on her thing and read her reviews, and all of the reviews were like, she never calls people back. She never answers. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. So do your research so that you can see what it is you're looking for, but also make a list of what you're looking for. And then I think there's something simple. I've heard a lot of people say, I've tried counseling before and it didn't work. So I'm never going back.
Yes.
Or I had this one therapist and she wasn't any good. And this is my thing. You've had a bad stylist before. You had a bad beautician before. You didn't stop getting your hair done because she gave you a bad hairdo. You let her go, and then you found, or him, and you found someone else. So it's the same thing with therapists. All therapists are not created equal, and you may not connect with that one. It may just be something, you know, it doesn't mean they're not professional. It just can mean that we just don't connect. So keep trying until you find one that you connect with. That's what I was saying. And then ask. Because a lot of times when you just put it out there and say, hey guys, I'm looking for a therapist, people would, girl, let me tell you, my therapist's name is, and you'll be surprised how many people already have a therapist. So just, you know, ask for referrals.
Now, I'll tell you, one of my challenges is that I know too many therapists. And so my concern is, well, I've had people who have asked me if I can refer them to someone, and I have. And then I had one person who said, well, I didn't go to them because you know them. I'm like, there's confidentiality. They're not going to tell me what you all talk about.
They're not going to call you and tell your business. Well, look, they're not supposed to. Just put it according to our code of ethics. They're not supposed to do that. So, no, legally,
and that's why I was like, I don't think you have that to be concerned about. Don't let that be an excuse. And this was a man, so you know, he may have been trying to look for an excuse not to go. But I'm like, no, they're not going to tell me anything. I'm just, you know, letting you know who's in the field. But I remember my mom saying the same thing to me as well. She was like, well, I can't pick anybody in the South suburbs, and because they may know you. I was like, it's like they're not going to tell me anything.
But those are legitimate concerns. Those are some reasons that people have. And then just some resources that I would suggest. Psychologytoday.com is a great resource that you can look on to see, you know, who are some legitimate therapists that are out there, and then you can read their reviews and things of that sort, see what their credentials are. You know, make sure that the counselor has some credentials, you know, see how long they've been out of school. They just got out of school yesterday. You know, you kind of want to do your research and then ask some questions. And I think the only other thing I would add is that if you are open to a therapist that is different from you, you know, you may want to ask some questions about culture, you know, because some people said they went to a therapist that was a different culture and it just wasn't a good fit. And it doesn't mean that it wasn't a good fit because they weren't knowledgeable. It could have just been that they didn't have a fit, but then sometimes it's because of the cultural differences. So you may want to have you a list of questions to ask them about, you know, their experiences with other cultures, you know, and how do they address that, you know, in the therapeutic relationship.
Yeah, that's a very excellent point. Because I've had a friend who was experiencing health challenges, and she went to the counselor that was available at the hospital, and it just did not. She was like, this is not a good fit because
she doesn't understand me culturally, and spent a lot of time going back and forth.
Yeah.
So that is definitely real, especially if that is very important to you, to have someone who can identify with you and your experiences. What would you say, have you found that sometimes when you're going through counseling, I'm pretty sure there's no set amount of time that you, I mean, because everybody's situation is different. Obviously. But as far as, because I've had concerns myself with, once you've been going to someone for so long, then does the relationship kind of get blurred, where you end up, I don't know, becoming friends. So almost as if you feel like you're talking to, I've had that experience where I felt like, okay, I've been going to this person for so long and they know like all
everything.
Then now I don't feel like I'm getting the benefit from the relationship or the experience, because I feel like, or I felt like they weren't necessarily being true. I don't want to say not being truthful with me, but I felt like I got to the point where they were telling me what I wanted to hear because they got to know me so well.
Gotcha. And I think that this is just my take on this. And I think that the way that insurance companies have it set up, some people don't like it, but I think that that's why it's set up that way. So now a lot of the insurance companies will only authorize 6 sessions at a time. Because they want you to work on one specific issue at a time, so that you kind of avoid that. So you go in, you work on that one issue for 6 weeks, and then you pause, and then maybe you come back again for a different issue for 6 sessions, and then you pause. But I do agree with you that there are some people that I've encountered who said, I've been in therapy with this person for 10 years. And I'm like, 10 years, that's a long time, but when I'm speaking to them, they're still having the same issue that they had 10 years ago. And so I think that is the concern, that if you've been in therapy for 10 years and you've grown leaps and bounds and you're working on different issues and stuff, great, kudos. But if you've been in therapy for 10 years and you're still where you were 10 years ago, how effective is that therapy, And so and like you said, have you just become friends and you just using that hour and you paying them to just talk to your friend? So I think we have to just keep that in mind when you're talking about therapy, because I think the purpose of therapy, the therapeutic relationship, is we're addressing the issue. I'm giving you tools so that you can go home and utilize those tools without me, when I'm not there. So that's just my opinion of the therapeutic relationship.
Well, just having this conversation just made me feel a whole lot better because I was beginning to think, as I'm sitting here thinking about, okay, what were some of the areas that I was working on with this particular therapist? And I did get to a point where I stopped because there were some key areas that we were focusing on. And it was really related to removing the guilt of trying to take time for myself, because I did feel very guilty. Anybody who knows me, or if you see, people know me as Kamal, Aaliyah, and Khalees's mother, because everything is, I'm even struggling right now because the twins are the oldest. I don't know what it is to just have one child in the house. So I feel like I don't know what I'm going to do when the twins go away to college. It's just going to be one child. I don't know how to function with just one child. And then, but one of the areas that I was supposed to focus on was taking time for myself and not feeling guilty about it. So I had like some key targets, and then also taking vacation. Like I would not take a vacation just by myself without my children. I tell you, when I turned 44, I was in Cabo by myself.
I saw those pictures. It was nice.
And then
it looked like you had a good time.
I had a wonderful time. But then mom guilt did seep in. So for winter break, for our vacation, I took them to Cabo. But
But you did do something, but you did do that for yourself.
Yeah,
So
I did that for myself.
That's to be commended.
And I was actually very afraid of traveling out of the country by myself because I had never traveled by myself. My travel partner was the man that I had dated for 5 years, and he passed away in 2018. So I had just completely shut down, where I was like, that was my partner. That's who and so working through that grief and that process, like, my counselor had to continuously say, okay, can you just book something, even if it's go check yourself into a hotel, do something for yourself. And I would come up with so many excuses. Well, I can't do that because then I've got to do this. And so I finally broke free of, hindering myself. I was in my way, I was battling myself. But you're right. Once you tackle, I can see where when you work on specific issues and then you feel like you've accomplished that and tackled that, then go on to the next, if there are any other. Yeah. So,
because I think that the issue, like what you were just saying about the self-care piece and feeling guilty about it, I think what the therapeutic relationship does is help you to figure out where is that narrative coming from? Where is it coming from? Is it something from your childhood? Is it something that you saw with your parents? Something that you see in the home? Where is that coming from? And then how do we change that narrative? Yeah. Because self-care is important. And what I try to tell most women, I'm like, if you don't take care of you and you end up in the hospital, who's going to take care of your kids when you're in the hospital? Mm-hmm. And I think that's an eye-opening thing. I was on a call Saturday and a young lady said she had some issues going on. She was having some pain. Her mother told her, go to the hospital. She went to the hospital. She was admitted to the hospital for 6 days. Oh. They had to do some surgery on her heart. But they said if she had not come that day, she probably would have had a heart attack. And she was 30, I think she said 34 or 35 years old. God. But she was one that I don't have time. Now she makes time. Mm-hmm. Because she said, I feel like I've been given a second chance. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to make time for me so that I don't end up in the hospital. And she said she feared for her life. And that what she was thinking when she was in the hospital, who's going to take care of my kids now? Mm-hmm. If I'm not here, if I don't make it, who's going to take care of my children? So that's what I want women to think about. That it's not being selfish, but it's necessary for you to live, that you have to do some things for yourself.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. So, and it's important to listen to that light bulb or whatever, that sixth sense that's going off, and listen to your body.
Yes.
That
listen to your body
and listen to your mama. If your mama tell you to do something, do it.
Right. But then I also think, Dr. Muhammad, when you said something earlier, just to go back, when you talked about the children, and I'm just going to say this for parents out there, to listen to your children. So I know in CPS, they're allowing the children, I think, to take 4 or 5 mental health days. And so the other day, one of my Facebook friends posted that her, she has twins as well. And they, one of them wanted, I think both of them, they wanted a mental health day. She allowed them to take a mental health day. And the stuff that people said in response to it was just interesting to me. People were like, these kids, they are spoiled. They don't need any breaks. Your break is on the weekend and this and that. And I'm like, first of all, that's her and her household. Yep. So let her do what goes on in her household. But they also have excellent grades. Yes. They have multiple scholarships.
Yeah. I know those twins.
Yeah. They said they needed a day, and their mother said, let them take the day. Why not? Yep. Why can't we allow the children to take a mental health day? Why won't you allow yourself to take a mental health day? Right. You know, there are days when we don't feel like it. So they're human just like we are. I don't feel like getting up some days and going, and they don't either. So let them take one day. Is not going to make or break them.
It is not. It is not. I tell you, I felt like last week when we had the snow days.
Yes.
We had Wednesday, Thursday, and I was saying, I don't know why they got to go back to school on Friday. Just let them. Me too. And so my youngest, she said, do I have to go to school today? And I said, you know what? No. You can, so that was her mental health day. I asked my son, I said, do you want to go to school today? He was like, no, I got to go. I can't be behind. But I had to pick him up early anyway for an appointment. So it kind of, And
it
worked its way out, but that's why I said I had to start listening and paying attention, because sometimes, unfortunately, we do have that mentality where our children, they're privileged, they shouldn't, what are they stressed out about? But the one thing that has always concerned me, I have to just be very honest, because I've had friends who have lost their children. And the one thing that I want to make sure, and I stress to my children, whatever it is that you're going through, if you stress, I need you to talk to me.
Yes.
And so I'm trying to pay attention to any signs,
Good.
Because I don't want to, I just couldn't even imagine losing, my children, especially if they are so stressed or overwhelmed or going through something that they just didn't feel like that they could, open up and say, I need help, or, so I've learned, it's just, I don't want to say it's just school, but it's just school. It's not like I'm letting you stay out days at a time,
right?
Or what have you.
Right.
One day is not going to hurt you. And I think, unfortunately, I'll just say this, with social media, we know that it's an issue with children, right? With the amount of what they go through, because they're trying to live this lifestyle based on what's on social media. But it's the same thing with adults.
Exactly.
Where we feel like we can say whatever we want to say, judge people for what they're doing, what's best for them and their household. At the end of the day, you got to do what's best for you and your family.
Exactly.
Which is one reason why I don't go to social media for advice on parenting my children, or what do you think about. I don't want to know your recommendation or what you would do, because your situation is going to be different from mine.
Exactly. So you have to just find I think another part of self-care is just finding your tribe. You know, who is your tribe, that you can go to, like your go-to people or your go-to person that you can say, hey, I'm struggling in this area, because we all struggle, as parents, we don't know everything. But you can find your tribe and go to your tribe, and then your tribe will say, girl, that's I had to go through that too, but this is what I did. And then you figure out what you're going to do. But I'm with you. I don't go to social media, but I just think it's interesting how some people try to tell other people what they should do in their household. It's like, you have to do what works for you. But at the same time, Dr. Muhammad, I think you spoke on some important things in regards to our youth, that we are seeing an increase in the number of suicides among youth in our community. And what many of the teenagers are saying, we just did a focus group with teens out here in the South suburbs. They are saying that when we did this survey with them, we asked them what were the number one issues that they're facing in regards to their health. The number one answer was mental health. One of the teenagers said, everything that I go through is surrounding my mental health, because I have so much stress. It's so many things going on. I have so many demands. There's so much on my shoulder. And I think that is why our suicide rate is so high, because so many of these youth have high levels of stress. And then a lot of times they have untreated depression. And the research shows that 85% of people who died by suicide had untreated depression. So please just pay attention to your youth when they're saying that they're stressed out. Don't just assume I've heard people say they're just weak. And I'm like, no, they're just being honest about what they can handle. On your plate is full, stacked up to the top and leaning to the side, but they can't handle that. So listen to your children as well.
Absolutely. And we have to recognize the times are different from when we were younger and coming up. Our children are exposed to so much information. It's almost information overload. So the things that they are exposed to, I don't think that we were exposed, and that has an impact as well. Before we kind of wind down, I just want to kind of go back and remind people that you will come out and do speaking engagements for groups if they can. Contact you how can they?
Absolutely. And they can contact me on my website. My website is FeliciaMarieHouston.com. And then I'm on social media as Felicia Houston. On Instagram, I'm Felicia Marie Speaks. So you can find me, any of those places, or you can just shoot me an email. And my email is FeliciaMarieSpeaks@gmail.com. So
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. And just if you can give us some reminders, just reiterate the importance of putting that mask on first.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to just say that this is just for women.
Yeah.
This is for everyone. Considering what we're going through right now. Yes, we are still in the midst of a pandemic. I don't care who unmasked, masked, or whatever. We're still in the midst of a pandemic. The numbers are finally going down. But we are in a crisis right now. We are in a time of uncertainty. And because of that, your immune system is probably down because you're worrying excessively, So please make sure that you take some time for you. Not take some time, make time for you. To do some things, to reevaluate because life is short. I think that's what we've learned during this pandemic, that life is short. So it's too short for you not to live, so do some things that you enjoy. Say no to things that you don't want to do. That's self-care. I don't want to do that. Absolutely. No, I would love to help you, but I can't. I would love to come speak for you, but I'm not available that day. And I did that to one lady. She said, well, you have to speak somewhere else. I said, yes. And she said, well, can't you come after you speak there? I said, no. I said, because I don't want to. I don't want to leave there and come up. I don't want to do that.
Right.
Pick another day, ma'am. Look on the calendar and pick another day.
And I was going to say, you're a busy woman anyway, because you're active in the community. I won't run down all your credentials, but you do more than just this. So
right. Yeah, and I need to take a break. And I would encourage everybody to do that, to schedule you a time to just rest, and do nothing. Sometimes I rest and just watch HGTV, or I love me some Law and Order SVU. That's what I like. I watch all of the episodes, the whole season, but that's my time for me. And then I'm rejuvenated. I'm like, okay, now we got to get back to work. Yes. But make sure that you put yourself at the top of the list, and not at the bottom or not even on the list, because when you do those things for you, it allows you to pour into other people. So you pouring in, God or whoever your higher being in is pouring into you, which allows you to pour into other people. But I just want you to remember, you cannot pour from an empty vessel. When you have nothing left to give, you can't help anybody else. So start with helping you so that you can help other people.
I think that's a great point to end our conversation on. I thank you so very much for taking time out of your schedule to remind us of the importance of taking care of our mental well-being and reminding us to put ourselves on the list and then at the top of the list.
Exactly.
If you want to get in touch with Felicia Marie Houston, you can find her on social media at Felicia Houston. Your Twitter handle is Felicia Marie Speaks. So make sure you follow her or check out her website as well. Thank you so much for tuning in for this week's episode of Light It Up. I hope you tune in next week to see who I have on as another very interesting guest. And as always, remember to continue to light it up and shine bright like a diamond. Thanks for joining me this week on Light It Up. Make sure you visit my website at www.lightituppodcast.com or www.aginahmuhammad.com. You can also find me on social media using the handle @LightItUpPodcasts. If you like what you've heard, please be sure to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, I'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or you can simply tell a friend about the show. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for a new episode. Until next time, light it up and shine bright like a diamond.